So I want to talk about Blue Jacket. Basically, like, it is very consistent, and it's like a very solid, like, enjoyable show, and it is probably very easy to get into for people who aren't that keen on the visual style of older series in general.
Rain people.
Alright, welcome to another episode of the Wave Motion Canon podcast, the weekly motion canon. I am your host, CJ Hitchcock, and this week I am joined by Josh Dunham and Jimmy Gnome. Go ahead and say hello. Fellows.
Hi.
This week we're going to be celebrating something that's pretty special for us as individuals, because I know this is one of my absolute favorite series. We are going to be celebrating the 50th anniversary of Lupin the Third in this particular episode. And, like, I just absolutely loved this show. Would you guys agree that this is probably one of the best anime series of all time?
It's really good. It's, like, one of the better long-running shows, I believe.
There are quite a few shows that are super iconic. And this one is maybe the most iconic of all of them, I dare say. I remember listening to Jam Project doing the Boogie Woogie Nights animation top 20. And what they did is it's this one long MP3 that's about 20 minutes long, and you listen to them sing the top, kind of like a medley of little excerpts of all these different anime openings or whatnot. And number one was the... what was the exact phrase they used? The wild and gun blasting Lupin the Third. It was like, oh yeah, and like Jam Project singing the opening for Lupin the Third, the '80s version, of course.
Yeah.
Whew.
Nice.
Man, like I'm already getting shivers down my spine, getting goose flesh just thinking about it. Like Lupin is pretty damn cool.
Mm-hmm. Right. Lupin has always been one of those series where it's always been a very big influence in terms of what I like. I think it really kind of comes down to primarily that I really like heist shows in general. Mm-hmm. And this is a series that is completely about the thrill of a chase of a heist. And for me, the reason why I think this show works as well as it does is primarily that the characters are always consistent. And, like, there's never, like, a changing of the guard kind of thing with this type of series, where it's always kind of your main five, your Lupin, Jigen, Goemon, Fujiko, and your Zenigata. Like, it's always those five in an epic chase to get the treasure of the week. And, like, just watching them kind of go about their business doing these heights with all kind of wackiness going on, like, it's always been a thing for me where it's always just been kind of my go-to show when I need to watch something to kind of improve my mood and whatnot. So, like, this is a series that does mean quite a lot to me, because it is just one of those shows where it puts me in my happy place.
It's true, like, the characters stay consistent, but it's also really interesting how malleable they are. Like, even between episodes, like, depending on who's handling it, or, like, in between the different jackets, you can have a very different feeling of Lupin, and all the other cast members, too, like, just depending on how the creator decides to approach it. But it always still, well, with few exceptions, it still manages to feel like Lupin the Third anyways, which I think is, like, a very unique aspect of this show in particular.
That's pretty true, and I'm reminded of something that Patrick Macias said. I've been listening to the old AWO podcast, kind of going through my annual listening to every AWO, and Patrick Macias made the comment when they were talking about Kazuo Koike, and for those who want to listen to that great episode 7. But you're listening to them talk about Kazuo Koike, and supposedly, for those who don't know, Kazuo Koike is a writer for Gekiga and that sort of thing. Look it up; you'll learn lots of things. But for the brief kind of stint that we're talking about this here, the idea is that successful manga, at least in the Koike school of thought, is not a good plot, is not even great art. It is the good character. And in that regard, Lupin is a lot like Scooby-Doo. Like, those characters are timeless. Now, granted, Lupin is not nearly as accessible as Scooby-Doo. I would not sit my child in front of a lot of the Lupin franchise, simply because it is adult. It's like an adult Scooby-Doo. Lupin is very well branded. He has his Walter P38. He smokes, I don't know how to pronounce it because it's freaking French, but Gelance or whatever, cigarettes, and I know French people listening to me right now going, haha, stupid America. But as I mock you with my French accent, I apologize. But the point is, like, he drives this yellow Fiat 500, or sometimes it's white, Lupin is always iconic. And the thing is, we call him Lupin Green Jacket or Lupin Red Jacket or Pink Jacket. He is so well defined no matter what role. So, like, you're watching Fujiko Mine, right? And he's got a green jacket, and you're going, oh, okay, so this is Green Jacket Lupin. And boom, you instantly, if you've seen Green Jacket, if you know that, you instantly have a character already concocted on screen. It's just generated. It's kind of like, if Scooby-Doo appears, you know who Scooby-Doo is. It's just so lovable, so completely and utterly iconic. That's the only word I can think of. Like, this is like the equivalent of Superman or Batman. You know what I'm saying?
It's kind of funny because, like, I was going to bring up, because, like, my kind of thought is when you say a character is malleable, the first kind of character I think of is Batman, and how there have been, like, a dozen different incarnations of that character. But with Lupin, even though you do have slight differences, at the end of the day, he is always an honorable thief for the most part, and that's always the thing that I've really liked about that character, is you have this, basically just this dude who is just in it for the thrill. He's not necessarily looking to make riches and whatnot, and most of the time he doesn't even get the treasure. And it's, again, like, it's always that thrill of, not just the thrill of the chase, but getting a thrill out of life and whatnot, and that's always something that I've really enjoyed. And even though you do have your green jackets, your red jackets, pink jackets, blue jackets, you can make a Dr. Seuss quote from that or something like that, I'm pretty sure. But but yeah, it's they're all pretty much consistent. Like, there's not like, oh, you don't want to watch that one particular OVA because all of a sudden Lupin, like, murders a child. So don't watch that particular.
See, I want to stop you there because, like, the word consistent needs to be used carefully when we're saying, like, obviously, Lupin is all consistent, because even in the same jacket, the same series, there's a lot of inconsistencies.
Miyazaki's Lupin is, like, way different from the Green Jacket, like, when it starts.
Yes,
and
that's
then
the interesting
you brought
thing.
up
Miyazaki and Takahata were working on Green Jacket for at least half of it. They're responsible for, and yet Castle Cagliostro is completely Miyazaki, and it's completely different.
Okay, it's like, that's an interesting thing, because I just last night listened to this documentary called The Joy of Motion. It's about Yasuo Otsuka, who is, if you don't know, one of, like, the founders of Japanese animation, like, doing a lot of stuff at, like, Toei Doga, stuff like that. But he was basically mentoring Miyazaki, and I mean, he was co-working with Takahata, but also sort of mentoring. They were in different positions, and, like, he was talking about how he came in. He was directing original Green Jacket Lupin, and it was getting really bad ratings, so he had to bring on his pals Miyazaki and Takahata to try and lift it off the ground. And then there was a space where they went and worked on
was it Future Boy Conan?
Yeah, Future Boy Conan. And suddenly Miyazaki had become, like, this expert storyboarder who, like, puts his hands on everything and will just, like, do, like, all the drawings for an episode and storyboard.
Wait,
and,
it had, like, to be earlier
just
than
totally crazy.
that. I think it was Hole's Prince.
No,
of the Sun,
it was Nope.
It was Conan.
It was Conan.
Okay.
And it was 79, I think, maybe a little bit earlier than that. But yeah, I guess it was because I think Red Jacket starts at 79. But
Well, no, Green Jacket.
anyways, like,
oh yes, 71 is Green Jacket.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So when Otsuka was like, he was put in charge of doing the second Lupin film, like he was going to be animation director. He was like, well, let's bring Miyazaki on, and like Miyazaki had learned so much, mostly outside of Lupin, but like you could see like the huge jump in skill as a director that Miyazaki had between like his original Green Jacket episodes that he and Takahata did, and when he comes back to do Cagliostro, it's like that's when he's totally solidified that like his adventure film style that everybody knows him for. And like it's probably the best known thing about Lupin, so
Yeah, so the initial complaint was that during Green Jacket, the original director Masaki Osumi was too dark, which was actually kind of reflective of the manga. In the original manga,
yeah, it's very manga.
Yeah, I mean Lupin is, and I mean I hate to kind of just lay it out like this so boldly, but he's not a good person all the time. In fact, he's a rapist. He's a murderer.
He's a bit of an asshole.
A bit of an asshole. Like the guy is actually a bad dude at times. Now it differs from chapter to chapter, but like literally, there's some pretty grotesque stuff in that manga that's just not simply okay for television. And Osumi was kind of going towards, like in the first episode, Fujiko's clothes get ripped off. Just like, what's going on? Like, this is my first introduction to the series, and this character is being forcefully held against her will and stripped. And it's just like, wow, okay, like no warm up, ramp up period, like just total Game of Thrones style. We're just gonna throw you straight into it. And geez, I mean, like
it is like really surprising, I think, for a lot of people who maybe have a knowledge of Lupin by like fandom osmosis, like, and it's probably the Cagliostro style, and you start watching Green Jacket from the very beginning. I think it'll be like most people will be surprised about that.
Exactly.
Also,
hey, what's up, friends?
Yes. See, you can't have a Lupin conversation without Mr. IBCF just magically appearing.
So, what are we talking about?
Oh, yeah.
We're kind of discussing the origins at this point with Green Jacket, with Masaki Osumi, and we just got done kind of explaining how Miyazaki and Takahata jumped in and started taking it over.
Oh, right.
Well, we were talking about how like there's like a pretty big difference between end of Green Jacket, like Miyazaki and Takahata, where Miyazaki isn't like a hugely experienced director at that point, and then when he leaves and does like Future Boy Conan and comes back for Cagliostro, it's like he's a totally different guy and is making like these really good
but you can still see the resemblance. Yeah, he's still all the Miyazaki-isms, similar drawing style, a little softer and lighter Lupin.
It's like, for me, and I made this comment on Twitter, I don't consider, because of that tonal shift, I really don't consider Cagliostro to be an effective part of Green Jacket. Like, to me, even if you identify all the different Lupin series by Jacket, Cagliostro still stands completely outside. It's like Green Jacket Mark II. It's a different beast. Even when you go from
It's just Miyazaki.
It's a Miyazaki film. Like, you can
Lupin.
rename the
that's
characters.
the only way you can say
it has nothing to do with Lupin, and it'd still be the same film, I feel.
Like, you go into Miyazaki's Red Jacket episodes, and it's pretty much the same deal there. Even though it's a bit more, like, some of the stuff that they do is a bit more
when you
intense,
say same,
more,
kind of the same deal,
violent.
do you mean like it stands way out from the rest of Red, or do you mean it's like it's ingrained pretty well?
Well, I haven't seen all of Red, but from my personal understanding and having picked and choose some episodes, it's not a very consistent show in terms of characterizing Lupin himself or like the main cast. Like it's just depending on who's handling it within the show. And I would say that Red Jacket, his episodes of Red Jacket are pretty, like Lupin acts pretty dang close to how he does in Cagliostro. I mean, he does the very last one, which is 155, and there's a girl in there that is
basically Clarice.
Yeah, and it's also basically Nausica, and it's just basically same character dynamic though as like Cagliostro Lupin. There's also the robot from Castle in the Sky makes an appearance in that episode.
Yeah, the Superman robot's originally from the 40s Superman cartoons.
And it's a good episode. But yeah, I would say that like that style is specifically just like how Miyazaki handles it. Just like how if you look at like we're probably going to talk about Yuzo Aoki, and like his episodes tend to be like really wacky Lupin, like almost Looney Tunes Lupin. I guess it's like a lot of how you draw Lupin is also going to be how you feel about him.
Well, before we jump right into that, I kind of want to, before we move away.
Yeah, we can go back to just like going through it like progressively.
I guess
like talking about Green Jacket.
I could sit here and talk about Green Jacket all day, but I'm just picturing, put myself in the shoes of the listener here, and like, let's pretend like they have no idea what Lupin is, or they have an idea of what Lupin is, and they're like, shit, I need to watch something so that way I can kind of keep up with these guys and listen to this conversation, and and with some sort of stake in it. I would say, look, if you're looking to start from a comprehensive Lupin then and now, you need to do the chronological thing. And I'll be honest with you, I don't even think you need to watch all of Lupin to really understand Lupin, because there's just so much.
I
don't think any of us actually have, to be fair. We've all seen pieces, and there's...
Dan turns around and he's like, I've seen every special.
That's the thing. That's the thing that you're hitting the head, hitting the nail on the head there, Jimmy, is that there are so many specials that come out consecutively each year, which...
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, Lupin just doesn't go away. It just, you expect the viewer to just kind of know about Lupin, and they do, and so thus, you can pump out these specials that are ultimately meaningless in a lot of regards. Criticizing a lot of those, they're not great, but if you want to really like, okay, I need to know what Lupin is, you can read the manga, but unfortunately, Lupin as a series, as a franchise, well, I say unfortunately, but it's not necessarily a bad thing, so let me kind of, not putting labels on that, but I guess my point is, Lupin has moved on from what it was. What it was is not what it is now, is not what it ever really is. Lupin, again, is a lot like Scooby-Doo, a lot like Batman in different incarnations, and what type you want to look at is completely fine. You can do it very independently. A lot of people complain that Metallica never sounds the same after the last album. It's like, it doesn't sound like the original. And Lupin's purposefully like that. They never go back unless it's like specifically to capture that emotion or to capture that character. It's very much its own thing every single time, but yet very loosely connected because character. It's written character. So, I mean, Green Jacket's a great spot to start if the older animation doesn't bug you, if you're interested in Hayao Miyazaki and that sort of thing. But
I think Cagliostro is probably the best point to start, but not like for just somebody who's not into it at all. It's just a film and it's really accessible. But I was just thinking, one of the things that, like how we're talking here about how these characters are malleable, and I think that one of the reasons that Lupin is so appealing, at least to me, is how much control a creator has over how they want to work with this idea. Like, it's a very good series at allowing the artists to express themselves through what's basically a very simple and abstract setup that basically everyone understands just hopping in. And any artist can just go in and like do their own spin. Like Sayo Yamamoto did it recently. Takeshi Koike is doing it with his films, or like basically OVA series things. But I really like how the series is framed so that a creator can really do a good job of expressing themselves, both as like if you're a storyboard artist, a director, and also an animator. Usually Lupin is pretty good at having animators be able to express themselves freely. That's why me as like a animation dude, like I like watching Lupin for that stuff.
Same. Yeah, he's such a malleable character. You can put him in any situation or change his personality a little to match the director's, and he still feels like the same person.
And you can just like draw him totally differently too. Like his design is also very malleable. Like I was just talking about how I was sort of picking and choosing some Pink Jacket episodes from the different studios that are working on it, and like it'll look completely different. Even within the same episode, sometimes it'll look completely different because the animators just have so much presence that like you can just tell immediately, oh, that's this person or that's this person. Like it's very clear that there's like a certain amount of freedom that you're given on Lupin, which is super appealing. I think that's a big deal for like long running shows in general. The cool thing
about it is like, that Lupin was born at the same time as like Golgo 13. You can go back to this very pulp fiction manga character where it's literally about male empowerment, male fantasy, power fantasy, that sort of thing. You know, always suave, always shooting first. You know.
I mean, yeah, it's a James Bond thing, and that's
James Bond was super monumental in Japan. But you look at the woman, you know, named Fujiko Mine. That's a completely feminist work. How did we go exactly from male power trip to actual elegant? I didn't even enjoy the show, but like the fact that
and I mean you could even
it's powerful.
Well, and that's kind of the thing that I think that really kind of sets Lupin apart from a lot of other long-running series is that, you know, because like you were talking about the male power fantasy, I've always kind of seen Lupin, especially with the stuff that I've watched, and a lot of my stuff is primarily the specials and Red Jacket during the late 70s, early 80s, and like Lupin is not always going to succeed. Like and that's part of the thing that I really kind of think that makes this character stand out is that you do have kind of this goofy little alpha male that is trying to, you know, prove that he is the best, but he is constantly being outwitted by his own bad luck sometimes good luck. And then you will have like characters like Fujiko who are just walking all over him. And that's always something that I've really enjoyed about Fujiko is that she's not a piece of eye candy. She is this character who does have far more control over a situation than Lupin does a majority of the time. And depending on the series that you're watching, for the most part that I've seen, Lupin has never really been bothered by that. In fact, he kind of enjoys it, you know, and and that's always been kind of like the thing that I think that makes the show last as long as it does, because like you have James Bond, who is always going to win at the end of the day, that regardless of what James Bond does on screen, you always kind of buy that he's going to be able to do what he's going to do. While with this one, with Lupin, you have this character who is capable of doing these really great and amazing things, but you're never given that guarantee that he's going to pull through. You know, like, he'll get away from Zenigata and whatnot and continue the chase, but you're never really too sure if he's going to achieve his goal or not. And I've always found that to be very appealing. And I think it is really smart of a lot of creators to put Lupin in that scenario time and time again, where, again, like, there's very little guarantee, and at the same time, you also have this great character who is, like, you can throw him into a, you know, like, an ancient Egyptian mummy curse episode, and it still works. And, like, there's, like, he is just this really great character who is capable of being thrown into just about any kind of story that you can think of.
Yeah, and they go really crazy in Lupin, which I think is another, like, testament to its longevity, is, like, just how
Well, the
crazy
suspension
they
of
can
disbelief
spin the
is endearing.
scenario.
Like, you have to believe in Lupin. You have to.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of its that's part of its goofiness, and like the you're saying like you don't know if he's gonna succeed, and honestly, there have been times where they'll just like kill Lupin off, but like he'll like come back, but like you sort of like question for a bit, like they just really kill Lupin off.
Mamo, you know, like, beginning of Mamo.
Yeah, Mamo. Like Mamo is a fucking trip. That movie, it doesn't get. I feel like, at least in my circles, it doesn't get the love it deserves. It's always under Cagliostro's shadows. But like personally, Mamo is maybe my favorite part of Lupin because it's just absolute.
Mamo was the thing that, like for me.
Yeah, I haven't seen Babylon yet. But for now, Mamo is like that film. It just keeps going and going and going, and the stakes get like absurdly high.
And that I really like Mamo because like I'd watched the series when it was airing on cartoon on Adult Swim, and when I went like, okay, I'm gonna look for more stuff with Lupin in it. I actually discovered Mamo first before I saw Cagliostro, and Mamo was one of those films where it blew me away the first time that I saw it. Like it was just one of those films where it had this really great pulpy attitude to it. It was just really zany and crazy and just random stuff happening all the time. Like there's a moment where he's running through this castle and then all of a sudden like he just runs into a clone of Hitler at one point. And and another like really fun crazy scene that's in Mamo. Like I actually, because like I don't have the Blu-rays of Mamo yet that came out a couple of years ago, but I still have the VHS tape of Mamo, and on the VHS tape there is a scene where a couple of guards are looking at an article about Lupin the Third, and the article is about Lupin's exploits with the Justice League, with him standing next to Batman.
I think he's
and
like fondling Wonder Woman.
Oh God!
I believe so. Yeah.
It is. That film is insane. It's really good. So like I really appreciate how sometimes like it's so loose that you can really just take it to those heights and it's okay. Like comparing Mamo to Cagliostro, which is like probably most grounded Lupin ever gets.
I disagree. Like I do not.
It's really jarring
that Cagliostro is actually grounded at all. I feel like it's so whimsical. Like the movie expects you as a viewer, and talking about Cagliostro here, to constantly be going, "Aww, aww, aww." It's just like you're supposed to like be cooing over this thing the entire time, and that actually kind of bothers me because it's like you watch Nausicaa, that doesn't happen. You watch, any other Miyazaki film, for the most part, there are moments where you're supposed to be very like, okay, Totoro is very endearing, but like Totoro is about children. Like Lupin the Third at this point is not necessarily a children's property. It's a family property. I get that, but like to the point where it's like you're supposed to be cooing over these gags, over all these different scenes of like, oh, I'm going to save you, Miss Clarice, or whatever. It's just like, man, I don't feel like it's aged well. I feel.
I don't know. I disagree with that, but my personal point that big was time too. That whereas Mamo, like the scene changes probably every 3 minutes, whereas and like it's never like everything feels very ethereal. Like there's nothing that stays in place the whole film really, except for like the main characters just being there and experiencing all this stuff, whereas Cagliostro is grounded in the sense that it feels like it has a sense of place. Like it's got a very developed setting with a lot of detail and attention paid to like the background and environments and such, and like it makes it feel like a totally opposite end of the spectrum kind of film. And it's obviously like a lot slower paced,
blonde Fujiko
takes its time to sit and like reminisce about what's going on in the plot.
Right. And when it comes to Cagliostro, I still think there is a really good bit of whimsy in there, particularly with just how Lupin moves and functions. Like that scene where he's swimming up the waterfall, like trying not to fall down it. Like that scene in particular is always one that stands out to me in that movie, just because of like that for me is like where you're at with this character. You believe that he can do those kind of things. Like same with him,
the
like
super jump across the roof
trumps.
Yeah.
You know. Because, like, even though, like, yes, there is a bit more of a, like, in terms of, like, the villain in that particular movie, like, he is not, like, over-the-top cartoonish, evil, cackling, I'm stealing your girl kind of villain.
It's a great movie in its own way.
Like, I mean, I love Cagliostro. I think it's it's up there in my Miyazaki oeuvre.
I think it's a better Miyazaki film than it is a Lupin thing.
I don't know. I don't have such rigid construction of what Lupin is.
Rigid construction. I mean, that's just how I define. Like, to me, it's a Miyazaki thing, not a Lupin thing. It just doesn't have the same tonality as so much of the other Lupin stuff. Like, even you go to like Fujiko Mine, where it's like literally about Fujiko and not Lupin. Lupin's in there, but it's about her. You know, that feels much more Lupin than Cagliostro.
Well, and I think a big part of that has to deal with the fact of how much they tone down the sexuality in Cagliostro, to the point where they kind of focus on Lupin being the romantic as opposed to being the crazy pervert sometimes.
Well, yeah. And I mean, that's Miyazaki's
I think that's right, and I think that's why you have such a drastic Lupin, or such a drastic change in Lupin from that particular movie to a lot of other stuff that's out there with Lupin. And, like, that's, I don't know, like, I just kind of feel like that's kind of the big difference between the two, and I can see why someone would be like, oh, this is completely different and should be non-canonical from everything else Lupin, but at the same time, I still think that is, like, I still see that as a part of Lupin.
I think when Cagliostro came out, it was criticized, like, everyone was used to Mamo style Lupin, and nobody liked it. It was sort of like Beautiful Dreamer, you know, such a big tonal contrast that nobody really liked the movie, and it kind of got a bad rep for.
I mean, we will probably have another episode about Beautiful Dreamer and Lum.
We should have a general Yurusei Yatsura episode. That'd be hella good. But I mean, I guess. I'm not totally sure. I mean, later on, when Red Jacket starts and Telecom starts doing their episodes in that, it's like Miyazaki style is like there to stay in Lupin until like for the rest of Red Jacket, which is sort of like, to me, Red Jacket feels like the average of Lupin. Like,
yes, Red Jacket is what really put Lupin, you know, in the zeitgeist, because it's the longest, the biggest chunk of the series. It's what made it over here to America first, so this is what people saw on Adult Swim, whether or not it did well. I mean, the fact is, for a lot of people, Red Jacket is the first Lupin thing, you know, that they encountered, whether it be a special or a movie or the TV series. You know, Red Jacket is, like you said, kind of the baseline. You know, you can kind of always go back to Red Jacket, but the thing is, Red Jacket itself is such a wide spectrum. You know, what is actual average Red Jacket? Like, Red Jacket
tends
itself,
to be
really,
really, depending on who's working on it. Obviously, it can go from being like really cartoony and wacky stuff, or all the way to like the Telecon episodes being a lot more in line with Miyazaki style. It's just there's just a lot of breadth to it, whereas Green Jacket has a very specific style that it feels like, and Pink Jacket, while it is super varied in terms of visual styles, is all pretty wacky, at least from the bits and pieces that I've seen so far. I guess the only Lupin show that's more consistent than it is Blue Jacket, and Blue Jacket, that's like That's what it sort of prides itself on, I think, is that it's very consistent. And maybe that's one of the reasons that I'm not as hot on
same.
it. But that's maybe we'll wait to talk about that.
Well, I mean, since you brought up Blue Jacket, have any of you guys
saw
been
the
watching
first
the dub
episode
for
and haven't
Blue
gotten
Jacket
around
at
to
all?
seeing the rest.
Okay. Right. I mean, Blue Jacket's great because, like I've said this on previous episodes before, I believe, where for me, like Lupin is Lupin. Like I will enjoy it. Like this is one of those things where it's just like even the worst Lupin is going to be far better than whatever crappy show you like, kind of thing. Like that's how I am with the show. But like I've been enjoying Blue Jacket and whatnot. Like it hasn't particularly wowed me at any particular point, but we need to talk about the biggest sin that the dub has done. They've replaced the opening for the dub.
Oh yeah. I already knew that. I thought you were gonna say I thought you were gonna shift it over to Fujiko Mine. You were like, now it's time to rile some feathers.
No.
So story behind that, because I found that out and I was like, what the hell's going on? Because they put that on Toonami. So right now, Blue Jacket's on Toonami for those who don't know. Supposedly, that was a thing that was sent. That actual opening that we have in Toonami, which is not the original Yuji Ohno score, that 80s Lupin theme that we all know. It was sent by the Japanese alongside, the Lupin episode, so we didn't even get a choice. Like, this is what was handed to us. I guess, I don't know. To me, it's so weird because Lupin is so Japanese, but yet so not Japanese at the same time. Like, this should be like almost a universal thing, very easy for a lot of people to get into. I mean, the humor is very Japanese, and culturally, it's very a Japanese type piece of media. But I mean, this is a French descendant man smoking French cigarettes and using German pistols and Italian cars. Like, this is so easy.
It did get aired.
Market this.
Blue Jacket, being the Italian season, was aired initially in Italy, so it aired there first before Japan. So there is some sort of globalization of the franchise, which is good.
But it's just like America. We
aren't as bad. We aren't as worse off as the Italians in terms of DOP.
So that's another story. That opening,
the Italian opening is incredibly bad. It's like
like almost back in the day, like when they used to do like Rock the Dragon.
It's like the Funimation. No, it's like the Funimation One Piece rap. That's exactly what it is.
No, that's okay. Correction, that is not Funimation. That is 4Kids.
Sorry, 4Kids. Sorry.
Funimation would have done a better rap. They would have gotten like Justin Rojas and Vic Mayonnaise to get together. And
well, Vic Mignogna did sing one or two of the English versions of the opening for One Piece, right?
For Dragon Ball, yeah, he sang.
All right. So Jim,
it's off topic.
You had thoughts on
It's off topic. Get out of this.
Anyway, let's not talk about Funimation songs.
So I want to talk about Blue Jacket. Basically, like, it is very consistent, and it's like a very solid, like, enjoyable show, and it is probably very easy to get into for people who aren't that keen on
lame people,
the visual style of older series in general. But it's just, but I'll reserve judgment. But to me, watching it, it's just a little dry. There aren't very many standout moments, and how I mentioned earlier that part of what I really like about Lupin is how individual animators, like, you can really feel their presence. It's not really that common to feel an animator's presence in Part 4. Like, there's that one Shinya Ohira cut, which is the highlight of the show, like the whole show.
Holy hell.
But outside of that, I mean, there's the Koji Morimoto's OP2 is like really, really good. And that's probably the biggest sin of like changing the English one, is that you probably won't get that really good OP. But like, it's just there's just not a whole lot of like animation standouts. Like fucking Kazuhide Tomonaga, who is like one of the big shots. Like, he's worked alongside. He was like Kanada's rival, like in the 70s, and like he's one of the coolest Lupin animators. He's director of the show for Blue Jacket and does a lot of animation in it. It's just that like none of it really feels that special. I don't know. It all feels like very like they try and go for a almost Cagliostro style like realism, like adherence to realism, like a telecom style. And it just never...
I want to kind of stop you right there because I think, and I know you are aware of this, but I want the listener to be aware of this too. Obviously, back in the day, animation was a very laborious process. Still is a very laborious process. So it's very easy for someone like Miyazaki to come by, do an amazing cut when his peers are just barely scraping by. This is 70, 71, you know what I'm saying? So it's not like you had all these different rock stars back in the day like you do now. And I think the thing is the average level of animation has just gone up.
I mean, I think that there is a like, obviously, I think in general animation there are more animators today who are impressive. There's a wider or a broader range of styles today than there were back in the late 70s, early 80s.
We're aware of more people. I think that's the thing.
I think that just in the case of Lupin Part 4, it tries too hard to be consistent.
I mean, I hear what you're saying because you want that variance. You really want that difference.
Right. Well, one of the things with Lupin Part 4, I think, is that it is far more story-driven and what's happening in each individual episode than it is about what's going on with the animation. And as myself, who is, like, I enjoy good bits of animation, but it's not the end-all, be-all for a show for me. And
I'm not saying that, like, the show is badly animated either. Like, it's a respectable effort.
But you want higher highs.
Well, it's more just like I like to see an animator's personality come through, and I just very rarely saw that in that Lupin.
Because it was, and that's what I'm saying is like the average level has been raised when it comes to like you're saying, it's not bad by any means. It's great.
No, it's just that like there are animators who I like who are working on the show, and they didn't have the same flair.
Cut. Yeah.
They never had the same flair.
I think CJ's right. It's story driven. I mean, like the episodes literally had to interlock. They probably. I mean, not as bad as Fujiko did.
It's not Fujiko. Like, there's not the same overarching plot, but there are like connections. There's more of a sense of cohesiveness, I guess, to the series as a whole than usual Lupin, which is just like last episode is totally forgotten by the time the next one rolls around.
Yeah.
So, since IBCF joined us, he should talk about Pink Jacket more because, like I said, I've only seen like a few episodes now, and they were really good. I think it's like the most underrated of like the most underrated bit of the whole franchise. Most people just don't. Some people just flat out hate it. Like I always, before actually like getting into animation and like getting like actually watching the show, I had like my personal impression just from what I'd heard was that it was really weak, and it's very different, but it's actually it's cool. I like it a lot so far from what I've seen.
Which episodes have you seen so far?
I watched, what was it? 30?
Which
I watched the last
studios?
two. I watched what was it? I mean, I had seen one of the O-Pro episodes that was on Anipages, and then I watched one of the ones that had the Tatsuo Ryuno.
Yeah.
I watched that the one with the all the money that was trapped in the safe, and like he has to get through the lasers and stuff. Yeah, that
all the traps.
Yeah. That was it's a very
animated entirely himself. Yeah.
Like, I think what's surprising to me about part 3 is that, first of all, it's like very 80s. I was not really expecting it to like come on as super 80s because Like Lupin, to me, it always has like this sort of
Timeless.
70s sheen.
Really?
No, it's very 70s. Yeah, like
Yeah,
all
yeah.
of Lupin is like very 70s.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay. Okay.
And then Pink Jacket comes in and it feels extremely 80s. It feels like some bits of Urusei Yatsura. It's got like it remind me a bit of some Dirty Pair,
Vaporwave
something like that.
Lupin.
I mean, it is Pink Jacket. Like he's got the aesthetic, but
Is that
He's got an afro for a few episodes. He totally embraces the 80s.
yeah, and like the opening, the openings are very 80s as well, because it's like a totally different. It's not the normal Lupin theme. It's just like an 80s pop song, or both. They're two, but it's good. It's just really, really different. It's very slapstick. I've heard that. I don't know. Are there like more serious episodes? Like all the stuff that I've seen has been very comedic, which I like.
Maybe the first half of the series. The first half actually kind of follows Monkey Punch's style at the time, which was probably more toned down in the 80s, and so it's actually kind of closer to. It's nothing like Telecom or.
Yeah,
you know,
because
the
they aren't
Red
even
Jacket
on.
ones.
They aren't even on the show anymore.
Yeah. No.
So Telecom being like the production company that was basically doing, like, they did Miyazaki's episodes in Red Jacket, and before that they were doing stuff that was very similar to him, and that sort of is not there. Though the O-Pro sort of, it's got more,
Sort of emulates
it's
them,
closer
yeah.
to that. So
But early on, they're sort of more grounded, actually, the stories and the animation. It's like Studio Iruka. They did some pretty... It's not like Telecom, but it's like sort of the same vibe, I think. It just, like, the way the characters look, they're kind of more appealing.
yeah,
kinda
that
cute.
is another thing, is like I mentioned earlier, Lupin will look totally different in between episodes, and sometimes in the same episode, he often has an afro, which is like a little much. Like, you normally don't think of that, but they go there, and like his face will be totally different. The way they draw the chins is like sometimes they'll have like a really defined chin, sometimes they'll be like really wacky, like just a curve, like really wide curve or something, but it's there's a big variance in this show. So if that's something that really bugs you, I mean, like, there's part 4 for your consistency, as I mentioned.
It's about as far from part 4 as you can get, probably.
Yeah. About but yeah, Pink Jacket, it's good. I don't know why people don't like it as much as other shows. I guess they don't like,
I think
the slapstick.
And the weird thing for me is, like, a lot of the other series have plenty of slapstick, especially with a lot of the earlier Red Jacket stuff. Like,
Red Jacket gets really slapstick.
And it's one of those things where I like, that's one criticism about part 3 that I don't quite understand, because it is very out there and very cartoonish and whatnot, but I think that's the thing that really makes it stand out for me and why it's so much fun to watch. But and then there are people like, no, Lupin needs to be serious. What? No.
I mean, nah.
Like, he's not even all that serious in part 4. Like, he's still, like, kind of chucking jokes and whatnot.
I mean, even looking at part 1, like, even though stakes tend to be higher, there's still a lot of goofiness in that show.
Yeah. I think part of the problem might be that, the Pink Jacket series proper, it never had good English subs for the longest time, and so nobody was able to watch it, on this side of the world. And the only thing people knew about it was the Gold of Babylon movie, which is probably the most far out there, even more than Mamo, possibly, that Lupin's ever got. It's co-directed
I'm
by...
watching this.
Mm-hmm.
Seijun Suzuki. He also did episode 13, which I recommend. It's sort of like the Lum the Forever of the Pink Jacket series.
Which is like, that really excites me.
It's totally out there. I mean, it's like a satire sort of commentary on the idea of Lupin himself, which is pretty nuts. Apparently, Oshii was supposed to Mamoru Oshii was supposed to do the Pink Jacket movie, and his ideas were so his ideas were apparently so crazy that they scrapped they took him off the project and put in someone who's arguably even crazier, Seijun Suzuki, to do it instead, and which is pretty ironic.
That would have been absolutely insane.
I'm glad we got what we got, though. I wish we got an Oshii Lupin, but
because I do. Yeah. There is that really good like 80s comedy Oshii that like having more of that would have been precious, but.
Yeah, what could have been.
Right. Well, we're going to go ahead and start wrapping up with a Patreon question, and this week it is from Amuro Char Forever 69.
That's the best username in the world.
And
that's good. I love that.
That new type of love can't stand in the way of it. I guess literally can't lay down in the way of it anyway.
So the question is going to be, let's see, what is your favorite episode of Lupin the Third?
Just one episode.
Ooh.
One episode.
Okay, that's.
And there's a lot. Like there's a lot that you could choose from.
I got
an answer.
A hell of a lot.
Okay.
So my favorite episode of Lupin the Third, if I had to pick just one, I have two. The first one is the episode, I think it's like episode 3 of Green Jacket. I just absolutely love Green Jacket to death. I think it's episode 3, maybe it's episode 4, but anyway, Lupin gets captured, and the whole premise is the same as the manga. They were still following the manga at this point, and he just keeps yelling, "Oh, the real Lupin's over there. Yep. I'm not the real Lupin." And they start getting like, holy crap, because Lupin's a master of disguise. So they pull out all these dudes and they interrogate him. It's like, it's just Lupin, pulling on our leg. So he does this entire time. He's about to be hung, right? He's going to be killed in a number of months or whatever. He's got enough time to grow a beard and shave it, whole 9 yards. He finds a way not only to swap spots with the priest for his last rites and everything, but he's convinced everybody around him, so that way when he finally breaks out, the person who's in there is like, "That's Lupin, I'm not Lupin," and they're like, "Yeah, we've heard this before," and they kill an innocent man instead of Lupin, and it's just like, wow.
Yeah, Green Jacket gets pretty dark.
My other favorite episode would be the one where it's the Magician, episode 2 of Green Jacket, where Paikal, this man, just appears out of nowhere and shoots fire from his fingers and lights Lupin on fire. He's bulletproof, like Jigen, Marksman Jigen, shoots like a whole freaking revolver into him. And he's like, "Okay, you're wearing a bulletproof vest. I got this." He hits him in the head and it doesn't do anything. It's like, what is up with this dude? How do you stop him? They pull out a bazooka and they shoot this man, and it's just like, can't do anything to him. And it turns out that he's got some scientific stuff going on where he can like shoot fire and he's like impervious. And anyway, really, really cool. Some really great episodes. Older animation, but damn, dude, like some great. You're gonna hear this from me. Like some great stories in there. Like it's some contrived stuff, but it's super fun. It's super, super fun.
Yeah,
that's my one favorite episode.
Oh, man, I mean, to me, like the best one for me is probably.
You're going to go with it. You just watched it today, though.
Yeah. I did just watch it today. I mean, it's like, it's one of my favorite Miyazaki things in general, which is like, that's...
It's like, Nausicaa still exists, sir.
Well, I mean, I've heard the manga.
Oh, boy.
But anyways,
that's another podcast.
That episode is like, it's the similar like Miyazaki style, but it's a bit more it's a bit crazier. It's about a dude that like a rich man that owns a plane that's full of nukes, and they kidnap Fujiko, and they gotta go save her. So like it ends up just like being this big old like there's all the Miyazaki like airplane fetishizing and stuff like that, and then there's like a certain like sense of action to it. It reminds you a lot of like some of the scenes in Nausicaa, and like when like the really intense style Miyazaki action scenes, and that sort of adventuring feeling that comes from his films. I feel like it's really well distilled in that production without being like, I feel like oftentimes Miyazaki trips over himself, especially later in the films, whereas this one, it just very tastefully ends, just wrapping things back to where it was at the beginning. And I don't know, it's really beautifully animated. It's got some really good staff. It's just like, that's Lupin, man. That's Lupin. And also, since Josh already cheated, I also just wanted to make a mention of. Well, you did too, so I was like, man, I just wanted to put this in since we barely talked about Fujiko Mine. Fujiko Mine episode 5.
Oh, with the owl?
Is one of the like. Nope, that's the one where they go into the pyramid.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like Jigen
they're not
versus
in that one.
Lupin,
versus Lupin, and yeah, and it's like
scorpions,
really
and
intense,
like a sand trip,
like,
and it's like Jesus.
Yeah, I that episode is incredible, and I feel like a lot of people don't talk about it because it's one of the like standalone episodes in that season that's really not like most people talk about that season as its whole, but that episode is
that's what Blue Jacket should have been like, I think.
Yeah, I feel like that episode is better than basically anything in Blue Jacket.
I bit my tongue.
But
just like episode
just
3
saying,
Blue Jacket,
dude.
it's really good.
It's really cool. Like if you want to do like adult Lupin, like cool Lupin, like I even feel like
what does that even
like
mean?
I don't know, like I'm just saying like the stylization, even compared to like
it's very
Takeshi Koike's.
I mean, but Sai Yamamoto is like, buds with Koike, so.
Well, I mean, Koike did designs for Fujiko Mine anyways, but like if you look at his specific directorial stuff, like Jigen's Gravestone, I feel like even though that is good, I do really like that. I feel like that specific episode 5 of Fujiko Mine is like, that's what I want modern Lupin to be more like, because there's a lot of animation that's like really like Kaneda-esque. There's like a real big range, and you can actually sort of feel the specific animators doing their drawings the way that they like.
Yeah, Jigen's
really
Gravestone
good.
is really good.
Definitely
I'm
worth
looking forward to their
revisiting.
Goemon movie.
But yeah, I just wanted to put that in there. It's not actually my favorite one, but
now,
it's
just a
super
little
underrated.
bit of heads up, if you do go to watch Jigen's Gravestone, the Fujiko section is really fucking weird. That's just a little preface. Like,
true.
if I like Jigen's Gravestone, but the Fujiko stuff in that is fucking weird.
Isn't I think that's like, it's supposed to be a reference to Eyes Wide Shut.
That's.
But I don't know. It does feel out of.
I mean, because it basically turns it into like a giant monster tries to rape Fujiko. Like that's pretty much what happens with her section. Like she's locked in a glass cage while just running around from this thing. Like it's weird. Like that's, like I like Lupin as much as everyone else, but that's one thing. Like if I had to point to something I didn't like, that was one of them. That's a different episode, sir. And or IBCF, what is your favorite episode or 2, since we're doing 2 with everybody else?
Oh, well, I would just say, like, watch all of Pink Jacket, but that's predictable. So I'll do a Red Jacket episode. 143, the Miami bank heist, or the title, something like that. There's this bank in Miami, and it's going out of business, and so they get the brilliant idea of having Lupin rob it so that it gets popular.
This is
again,
how you know it's not based in reality, because banks never go out of business.
Because, if the bank gets robbed by Lupin, then
everybody wants to put their money there.
Publicity. Yeah. And it's like it's a telecom episode, but it's got a storyboard by Yuzo. Can someone help me? Aoki, yeah. And he's the guy who did the
Yuzo
Pink
Aoki.
Jacket series, and so it's like a totally crazy story mixed with really good grounded telecom animation, and it's such a funny combination. Like, it's the only time that ever happened in any of the shows, and it's just got a really unique vibe to it. And
Now, didn't Aoki and Miyazaki end up like getting mad at each other or something?
I don't think they did. No.
I've never
had a
heard
disagreement or something. But anyway,
I don't think that Aoki has ever drew on
No.
Miyazaki. Yeah, that never, because he
No,
wasn't
he
on
wasn't.
Cagliostro, even though he did animation direction.
I could have
in
swore there was like
Tomo.
somebody in the Lupin staff, the Pink Jacket staff, who got like a beef with Miyazaki or something like that. It's like, well, I'm going to do Pink Jacket different or something like that.
Well, to
I
be
don't know.
fair, it's not very hard to get
Miyazaki's
into a
like-
beef with Miyazaki. Like,
It might have been
Yeah,
Oshii.
you're right.
I think Miyazaki was the one who recommended Oshii for the Pink Jacket movie.
Yeah, because he and
Maybe
Oshii are
that
like oil
was-
and water.
Yeah, that makes sense because they worked together, on, like, just off the top of my head, on under Tomino on that one thing that he did, the film. What is that called? Char's Counterattack?
Yeah.
They were
And
both
so
on
Oshii
that.
ended up making Angel's Egg instead, and he kind of reused elements from the Lupin movie to do that.
That's what gets me, is that, like, the stuff he was gonna do for Lupin got recycled into Angel's Egg. the most
I
obtuse
kinda
of
feel
his
the need
works.
to go and watch this immediately with this frames, like this mindset of, oh, this is Lupin.
it'll probably help
yeah,
you
the-
make a
what
lot
to
more
do
sense.
is put the three craziest '80s films: Lum the Forever, Angel's Egg, and then Babylon. It's like the trifecta.
Jesus Christ!
saying it's the Crystal
I'm gonna watch
Triangle?
that one
You should.
tonight.
Yeah. Whatever that.
Sorry, yes, Crystal Triangle. Anyway, it's
Oh my
another
God.
bad anime reference. But anyway, sorry, my bad.
All right, so I guess I'll go ahead and do two of my favorites. So one of my absolute favorite standalone episodes of Lupin the Third is in the Red Jacket series, where basically, to boil it down to its most basic terms, it's Lupin the Third versus the Loch Ness Monster, and I absolutely
I've
love
seen
that
that one.
episode. Primarily because, like, one, I really like the Loch Ness Monster as a creature anyway. Like, I could go on forever about that thing. But, like, the idea of that you have, like, Lupin having to fight a robotic version of the Loch Ness Monster and then actually discovering the real Loch Ness Monster, like, that's just a really fun episode with, like, a crazy scientist who is just has this crazy master plan. Like, that's also the one with, like, the earthquake machine, right? Or am I thinking of another episode?
I think that was a separate episode.
Yeah, but
Oh no, it's been a while.
but yeah, like, again, like, in terms of just, like, what I really like about Lupin, like, again, like, him fighting Loch Ness monster, like, mythical cryptozoic creatures and stuff like that,
yeah,
like, I
it's,
love
like,
it. Like,
very
if there was an
silly.
episode where Lupin teamed up with Santa Claus, I would be all for it. Like, I...
No, what if you went behind Santa and stole Christmas?
Why haven't they done a fucking Lupin Steals
Fucking
Christmas
easy as
special?
hell to
Jesus.
do, and they haven't done it.
Maybe we'll get it in here in the future.
Like, I can see the cover art in my
yeah,
eyes.
the
But,
earthquake episode that you're mentioning is that's like with the Leaning Tower of Pisa or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. But anyway, so, like, that the Loch Ness Monster episode in particular, it's just fun, and there's also, like, this weird moment where Fujiko's just like, I understand this creature. Like, that's just really fun.
Yes.
But to recommend, like, one of the specials that I personally really like is Farewell to Nostradamus. Because, like, I really enjoy a lot of the specials for various different reasons, because each one kind of does its own thing. because like you'll have one where it's like basically it's just a submarine movie, and then you'll have another one where it's like Lupin versus aliens. But with Farewell to Notre Dame, it's kind of this grounded story about Lupin trying to rob this treasure and finding out that this treasure is connected to this family who was having kind of personal issues, and it's basically him connecting with this young girl and trying to help her go through a lot of the things. And also there's this really great, like the finale for it is also really great because it takes place in this huge multi-story tower thing that's like 100 bazillion floors high and whatnot, and it like comes crashing down, and like that's a really cool visual that's in it. But it was one of the more like grounded Lupin that I really like, because it boils down to this very personal story about this little girl who is not able to connect with her family, and I really do enjoy that particular special. So like those are my two: Loch Ness Monster and Farewell to Notre Dame.
I think Notre Dame had some Ghibli animators working on it too, right?
I do see that I haven't seen it, but it looks like it was telecom production, so
probably the last good telecom loop that they did.
But so thank you very much for the question, cool. Armoro Chars Forever 69. That's that. Good question, good username. Thank you so much for donating towards the Patreon. If you want to have your question read on the show, go ahead and hit up our Patreon. It's only $1 to get into the door. Just go ahead and search for Wave Motion Canon on Patreon. You'll find us there. Again, all it takes is $1. And where can they find you guys on the internets?
I am at JimmyGnome9 on Twitter.
Sorry, I should go first. I am IBCF at _IBCF_.
And I'm Josh _Dunham. Being Lupin month, we're going to have a lot more Lupin translations hitting. As of this recording, the sound design, translation beyond, just behind all the different sounds and the music a little bit and that sort of thing, with Sayo Yamamoto and what was the other bloke's name there? Sayo Yamamoto, and then the sound designer for Fujiko Mine. It was Nuriyoshi Kikuchi. That's what it was. I remember Kikuchi because it's like, oh yes, that's just like the Vampire Hunter D dude. But anyway, so yes, we have an interview for the sound design with Sayo Yamamoto and Nuriyoshi Kikuchi on the site right now. That's kicking off Lupin month. I'm going to go ahead and let you guys know the translations that we got kind of already slated. We've already mentioned some of the design for Pink Jacket, and part of what we're going to do is we're going to grab some information from Pink Jacket that hasn't been translated, and we're going to go ahead and get that translated because Pink Jacket is criminally underexposed, not even underrated, just underexposed. Now, I don't think, when people think of Lupin, they might think Green Jacket, Red Jacket, and maybe Blue Jacket. That's it. So we're going to try and fix that. Please make sure that you are checking in with the site, because these things are just going to go up, when they're done. Probably on Tuesdays and such, not to mention we're all going to be writing different articles and different things here and there. It's the 50th anniversary of Lupin. Like, you cannot pass this up. 50 years of Lupin.
Pink Jacket, man. If you miss everything else, at least read the Pink Jacket interviews. It's gonna be great.
It's gonna be good. We got character design. We got different interviews with directors.
Yuji Aoki, and Tatsu Ryuno. It's got some amazing stuff that no one's ever probably read in English.
Some pretty, in English. We should probably put that stipulation there.
Yeah.
But it's pretty badass, and I'm gonna try and reach out and grab some other stuff. I might, if I can find, this is why it's important to donate to the Patreon, is because there's a lot of stuff that we simply can't do with our funds. We have a limited amount of resources, but I think I have some Yasuo Otsuka stuff that I can get translated.
Oh,
so I'm like,
sweet.
I'm sitting here on top of it, and I'm like, I just need to scan it. I need to shop it around, figure out a translator who can do that for me. But basically, it's like, if we want to get all this stuff out there, please, dear patron, we need your support, and we appreciate everybody who's already backing us. You guys are champions. Please support our translators. Reach out to them. Tell them they're doing a good job. This is a lot of work for, something that we love. And we know you love it too, so that makes it worth it for us.
And by the way, this is probably the first time in history any like text on Pink Jacket has been translated into English. Like,
Might be.
probably
It might
is.
be. It might be. I don't know. I haven't found anything else, but like I don't want to make that claim because then someone else will be like, "Well, actually, I found something here on this back page of Anna pages." It's like, shoot. But I mean,
Oh, I haven't seen anything.
we'll be the and you would probably know. So there you go. You heard it here first. IBCF has confirmed that that this is in fact the world debut of any Pink Jacket translation.
This is
And we only had to wait 50 years for it, folks. So yes, please, thank you. Continue to support us. We appreciate it. We will do our best to always produce content for you. And I think that's kind of, I'm off my soapbox now. I got to go watch some Lupin or something.
Same here. Yeah, so we'll see you guys later. Go
Hell yeah,
watch some
dude.
Lupin. We'll see you next week.
Pink Jacket, please do.
Sayonara, bye-bye.
At the end of the show, we'd like to go ahead and take a moment to thank the $10 backers on our Patreon. So at this moment, we'd like to give a special shout out to Anami, Osama_A, Cornelia Natsidi, Chris Magnifico, and Ben Grant. Again, thank you very much for your donation. It means a lot to us and it helps us keep the site going. Again, thank you very much.